because they look out for us.
That's incredible you got here when you did.
No.
Tell us how the first responders.
It's like going up, and then all of a sudden it's just
That's
like.
how it is. That's how it was coming home from the Eagles game.
This is McGruff, the crime.
Was it freezing or was it not too bad?
Before you think about buying counterfeit products, think again. You're smart.
I feel you
Buy
afterwards.
smart. Go for real. Learn more at McGruffPSA.org. This message is brought to you by the United States. 20 seconds. This is the National Crime Prevention Council.
If you came across a child struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them?
Other clues.
Their age, where they speak.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America, 200 food banks strong.
WWDB, Philadelphia, the talk station.
Good afternoon, greater Philadelphia area. This is Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Timon. We both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the number one RE/MAX team in the greater Philadelphia area and the state of Pennsylvania since 2018. And we have got some interesting stuff to talk about today because one of the biggest complaints for consumers is that there's no inventory. And for real estate agents, is that they want more listings. And Bright MLS did a great survey about who's going to be selling in 2025. And the answer might surprise you. And we're also going to be talking about two metrics that can help agents better service their clients, as well as dealing with the biggest challenges as a real estate agent in our second segment here. So if you get some value out of this, you like what you hear, make sure to subscribe to the channel, click on the bell for notifications. And if you want to schedule a call with our team about how we can help you understand who's selling and what to buy in 2025, you can do that with the link in the comments. So before I get into all the data here, Sarah, if I was to ask you who's the most likely seller in 2025, how would you answer that? You'll probably need your microphone.
Yes. I didn't
With
realize
a lot of traffic here with the holidays, so
Yes,
bear with
yes.
us.
Who's the most likely seller? I think I would maybe say the downsizer.
So your answer is the most popular answer we got at our team training today that we did. I know you were you got there a little late because of an appointment. That's what a lot of people thought. And this is something to really be aware of, because if you look at this Bright MLS survey, they showed who the likely sellers are in 2025 and why. And according to the survey, 26.8% of homeowners from 30 to 39 years old plan to sell. 28% of homeowners from 40 to 49 plan to list their property. And when you get to 50 to 59, it's 17.9%. 60 to 69 is 6.7%. And 70 or older is only 5.4%.
Wow.
So yeah, shocking data, right? And even under 30 is 21.5%. And this was something that I think shocked a lot of people, because if you think the main driver behind long-term homeowners is looking to downsize it, that's not it. It's many of these people bought their homes during the pandemic. They're planning to sell while just, like I said, 6, 7, 5% of those people 60 and 70 or older are looking to sell. And part of the reason behind that is because record low mortgage rates during the pandemic were a huge incentive for individuals and families to buy a home. And many of them accumulated significant equity. A lot of them settled for properties. Like, folks would go from, hey, I'm looking for a 4-bedroom single to I'll take this 1-bedroom condo because I need to buy a house. Like, I'm being a little extreme, but you get the point. And the wealth gain has created a financial security for this group of homeowners, and also is allowing them to be move-up buyers, even in today's relatively high interest rate environment. That's a quote from Lisa Sturdivant, the Bright MLS chief economist. So you seem surprised here. Tell us more. What's your reaction to this data?
Yeah, well, I mean, my first thought was just that the pocket would have opened up with interest rates kind of normalizing to where, they were not coming back to those like crazy low rates. So for the people that maybe have been hanging on to the home a little bit longer, when it doesn't really make sense for them anymore, now kind of having it be, a point where they're ready to make the move. So that was my first thought. But given that the numbers are showing there's very low numbers for that, that does make a lot of sense for for the 30 to 39. And when I was first looking at it, I was like 40 to 49, like that seems, I would have expected more out of the 30 to 39, but no, I mean, like I'm almost 40, like that makes sense as like, I have a lot of friends who are maybe needing to like get a house.
They're
that makes
making the
more
next
sense.
move, right?
Right.
Like maybe
Yeah.
they've done better at work, right? They've gotten they've furthered their careers. They also have a lot more equity. I mean, it gives you some more purchasing power, and I think that's. I mean, I know people that we mutually know that they bought maybe 6-7 years ago, and it's like, all right, well, we're thinking about moving again, and that can be surprising sometimes to a lot of folks. So, when I see this, for all the agents listening, this demonstrates how important it is to call the people that you sold a home to, because would you have some story in your head of like the family that bought a couple years ago? They're not moving. They're there for 10 years.
Yeah.
You
and
don't.
Things change.
Yeah, and then they see the listing pop up on the MLS, and it makes you sick to your stomach.
Yeah.
Because it's not with you, not you,
Right.
but you get this happened to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you see this happen, I mean, and seeing that younger homeowners are more likely to sell in 2025, they looked at the main drivers. And I think this is important for everyone to listen to, because if you're a buyer looking to buy a home, or you're a seller, these are the kind of people you're going to be working with, and it shows you what's really driving a move. 36% of homeowners between 30 and 39 said it was for job reasons, such as a career change or to move for a new job, which is usually what happens in your 30s and 40s. Another 34.4% said family reasons were prompting them to move, including marriage, birth of a child, divorce, and being closer to family. And people do get married and are having kids a lot later. This is a change in familial formation.
Right.
So, and it's the same. It's the same. Reasons for people in their 40s. Job related was the second most common at 25.8%, and family changes were at 43.8%. That's a big number there. So, when you see this, what does that tell you should be doing with your business, and maybe what advice you have for people that are hoping they'll see more inventory come to the market here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we talk about those different changes that happen that prompt a move. And it doesn't have to be necessarily, and it can be that like the first kid is what then like is like, okay, we need a different place, blah, blah, blah. But depending on the layout of the home you have, the space that you've got, it might not be until like the third kid that they've outgrown it. So I think just keeping in touch with past clients, with current clients, with your sphere, because those things can get triggered not just at like, oh, this is the life-changing event, but like compiled with other pieces.
So that's really smart advice, and you'd be surprised. Like it's just a quick like, hey, how are you call, like happy holidays. So easy to do right now. This next week or so here, it can go a long way. Here's the other interesting piece of data from this report: 3 out of 10 of these homeowners in their 30s or 40s, 30.3%, who are planning to move, currently have a mortgage rate with an interest rate below 4. More than 2/3, 67.4%, have a rate below 5. And these rates are obviously a lot lower than what a new borrower is getting. Right now, we're seeing average rates coming in like 6.75, 6.875%. And, much has been, people talk about the rate lock or the lock-in effect all the time. What we're seeing here is life is more important than the mortgage rate.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think when people like bring it back to the monthly payment, or like if they did build up a good amount of equity in the home that they have, and they can use that to either, put more down for the next home, or to buy down points to make your monthly payment more manageable. At a certain point, the space and like what you need out of the home is more important than, saving that extra bit.
And this is why it's important to actually have conversations with people. And on the role play calls, I know you're on them. It's the focus is, hey, understand the motivation of these folks. Like understand like what's going to get them excited about making a move, right? No one's excited to move because of the process. Moving sucks, right? It's horrible. And they're doing it because of what happens after the move. Like what's life going to look like afterwards? What's that going to do for you? And that's a great question you can ask people. Hey, what's buying a home like this going to do for your family? What got you excited about looking at this home in the first place? And these people are fortunate. While rates are obviously higher, that was like a once in a lifetime thing. The fact that they've been able to build so much equity. I mean, we were seeing 10, 12% appreciation in 2021 and 2022, which the projections this year, like 2 to 4% nationally, probably
Right.
4 to 6% in our market here. So, when you look at this, I think it's really important to understand that. Now, the flip side is the average age of a first-time home buyer, according to NAR, is 38 years old, the highest on record. What does that tell you?
Yeah, that people, there's a large pocket that just didn't buy before. So, I think there's always different things going on in the market that could make someone who is like on the fence or maybe not quite there yet, where this is like a top priority, home ownership, to make them say, I'm going to wait a little bit longer. When we had those incredibly low interest rates, there was pretty fierce competition. There was a lot of waiving of inspections, things that like many people didn't necessarily feel comfortable with. So maybe they kind of put it on the back burner. As we mentioned before, like the average age for when you start a family has pushed back a little bit. I feel like people are fluctuating between jobs still into their 30s and beyond, but where you don't know if this is the city that you are going to still be in a few years, and wanting to kind of keep options open.
Yeah, even if you look, we're talking about theory that families do get formed later. So the average age of first-time mothers in the U.S. is 27, according to a 2024 CDC report. That's up from 25 and a half in 2011. The average age for first-time fathers, this talks about male maturity here, and I can say this from the guys, 30.9 years old, up from 27.4 years in the 70s and 80s. So that's pretty interesting to see that kind of jump there. And I mean, it's not uncommon for people to have their first kid at 35 years old now. I mean, so that's a really normal thing. And I think that shows that it's been tough to get into the market. So these folks that were able to get in, it shows how life-changing buying a home can be for a lot of people from a financial standpoint. So what about the boomers? That's who you thought it was. Only 6% of homeowners 60 and older say they're planning to sell in 2025, with the desire to downsize is the most common. And if you look at, the vast majority are saying they're not planning to move this year, and nothing could make them change their mind. It's not rate lock causing these people to stay put. I think it's more that they don't like the options out there to downsize too. There's not a lot of great downsize options when you think about smaller homes.
Right. Or do you think maybe when they were filling out the survey, they didn't want to say like open the door and then think people would come and try to talk to them?
Well, so they actually broke down the survey. I like what they did with the survey here. So 51.4% of people 60 or older, nothing could make me sell my home right now. 30.5% said if someone offered me the right price, I would consider. 25.5 said if there was another home to buy or I had somewhere to move to, I would consider selling. So that kind of shows you there's probably more there if they could find something. Most people are living longer too. I mean, like when I was a kid, not that I'm in my 40s here. I had a 70 and 80-year-old grandmothers, and they just seemed a lot older than the people that are 70 years old now with like health and different things.
Sure.
So I mean, the people are living longer. And if interest rates came down further, I would consider selling my home is at 4.8%. So, I mean, this talk of the silver tsunami, remember everyone's like, oh, it's coming. I don't see any indication here that that's happening. So knowing who these people are that are moving right now, one of the biggest things we hear from folks is like, I can't find the right home. You hear this all the time. How would you use this data to help them decide what their next real estate decision should be?
Well, I mean, I think that a large pocket of the people that are struggling to find something are your first-time home buyers. So if the previous first-time home buyer is now listing theirs to get into the move-up buy, that should unlock a chunk of inventory here for the people who really need it.
I agree. And I think that this really demonstrates the importance of being out there, like looking at the market, because a lot of people have said like, oh, I'm waiting. I'm going to be waiting until the spring. And what we see happen is, inventory does balloon in the spring, but there's more competition then as well. And, you don't know when the right home is going to come on the market. I mean, that's always been the case of folks like they say they want the right home, and you've got to be out there and kind of be ready. Now, I think I see some optimism here for like first time buyers and people that want to get into these homes a little bit, because it's not the home you think would be coming to the market. It's, you know, if someone's in their 30s, they're probably in a move up or maybe even a first time buyer property.
Right.
So, you know, seeing all these survey results, there's also some interesting data that came out from Resi Club about home builders. And we're talking a lot about inventory here as we get ready for the new year. Home builders have more completed unsold inventory than at any time since 2009. Is that surprising to you? So they finished the homes and they're not sold yet.
So the only and wait, this isn't local, right?
This is national,
this is
yeah.
national. The only reason that I would say that it's not 100% shocking is because I just over the last week looked at a ton of new construction properties, and
market intel.
Yes, and I think one piece of it may be like, all right, so there are people that want to get in very early in the new construction process and customize and do everything, right? What I also noticed though was there were a lot of homes that said not completed, and then when I was able to book showings and they were in fact completed. So there may like I just noticed some weird thing there where like there could be quite a few homes that people are passing on because they don't want to necessarily wait, like if there isn't a time frame there for when it would be done. And I don't know that this would make any sense nationally. This is just what I noticed from the past week. There were a lot that were like new construction not completed, but yes, they were.
Well, you know, I think that there's something to be said for the local market information. And if you're going around, I mean, and so just to give everyone an idea, like where were these properties? What was the location?
There was
or locations.
Yeah, there was a mix between, there was a lot in like Manayunk, Roxborough. We looked a little bit in the city, but I would say primarily like Manayunk, Roxborough, and there is a ton of new construction there. But just from the past week, I can say there were a lot that it was like said it wasn't completed, and we were able to get into it.
Well, and you know, I there's two factors here in my view. One is that it's very tough selling pre-construction unless you have a sample. These could have been the samples, or they might have had to spec out a couple models. That's one of them. The other factor here is that and then this is the question that Lance brought up in his article, Lance Lambert over at Resi Club, is rising standard inventory simply a sign that new construction is normalizing after the pandemic housing boom, which I think is part of it too, because there would always be a couple spec homes here or there. And if you're a buyer, the spec home's the one you want to buy if you're looking to get a better price. You know, doing it all on your own, it's like getting a new car, right? So I don't like buying new cars. But when you do, you can go on the website and say, I want the orange leather seats. I want the souped up wheels, all those different things. That's what you get to do when you build a new home. That typically costs more.
Yep.
Then when you go to the dealer, and I had to get a new car because my other one was a disaster. And they said, we have 43 of this type of car on the lot. And I said, oh, interesting. That told me like, this is the opportunity because it was already there. It was built. It was spec'd out. I still got to pick the colors I wanted.
Yeah. I
didn't really get into, I don't care how fast it goes. I mean, I only need to go so fast. I have 3 children and, you know, like I'm not, it's not Fast and the Furious here. So that to me is very similar to what happens here. So if you're a buyer and you see this unsold inventory, I see that as major opportunity.
Well, and it was interesting for when I was kind of prior to going out and looking at stuff, calling some of the different communities that I had clients that had expressed interest in. There were always, you know, as I was asking about timeframes and things, there was always, it was like, well, we've got a couple quick move-ins that you'd be able to settle January, February, March. Then you've got like another phase or whatnot that would be like a little bit further out. But like, absolutely, you're going to get your best value on the quick move-in ones, because oftentimes they want to clear out all of those before they move on to another phase or move on to another project. And, you know, it's kind of impossible to be able to time it perfectly. You know, almost if you're like looking for it too hard, I feel like it makes it a little bit trickier. But I mean, I still remember back in the spring, I had clients who just the timing worked out great. We had looked at quite a few different homes. I think put in an offer or two. And then there was a new construction where they happened to have one where I think they'd had it under contract before. I think it fell through. It was pretty clear they wanted that under contract and settled in like that month that they saw it. It was like just I don't know, I think the settlement happened in like 2 weeks. They gave a ton of incentives, including like a 5.25% interest rate when
Wow.
rates were like significantly higher. So like there are opportunities that like you can fall into
Mhm.
with the new construction.
Well, I think that's also the home that's like been on the market 100 days.
Mhm.
I mean, you know, that all this stuff factors in. So when you look at this data point, and I would imagine a lot of the inventory you saw from what you said, it sounded like it was in the city more so than the suburb, the unsold new construction that was completed. Is that there wasn't a lot of spec homes out there?
More of it was in the city.
And that makes sense given the average sale price of new construction in the suburban markets is north of 800,000
Mhm.
versus in the city. I mean, you know, I there's new construction at various price points there. So when you look at this data, and then there was a lot of like comments on this. So the CEO of Meritage Homes says they're building more spec inventory because they're expecting a strong 2025 spring market. This was on a CNBC interview on December the 2nd. This is a publicly traded home builder ranked 560 in the Fortune 1000. And it's not bearish for builders. Felipe Lord said inventory is definitely up across all markets. Both existing home inventory is slowly coming back, and new home construction is definitely up as well. But that's really intentional by all of us home builders. We see an opportunity to fill that void of not enough existing housing supply. I agree with that. By
Mhm.
providing move-in ready inventory for all these customers who can't find the inventory in the existing home market, which is traditionally where they shop. What do you think about that analysis there by Felipe Lord? I mean, I tend to agree with what he's saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think being able to kind of fill that gap, and if you're doing the spec homes, again, it's going to depend on the buyer. It's going to depend on the price point, but sometimes not having to make all of the decisions, some people would prefer that, like to come in and just like this is what was already selected, and then also knowing that you're not adding on all of the additional upgrades that you probably would be doing if you were customizing it and building it from scratch. So yeah, I think that makes sense.
I agree. Housing analyst Kevin Erdman thinks it's bullish as well. Most of the time, the number of completed homes for sale rises because there's demand for them. This has never been more true than it is today. Normally, we might worry at the end of the cycle declining sales will lead to one last unsustainable increase in completed homes for sale. In today's market, builders need to keep up working to add more completed inventory so that sales can increase. I tend to agree there. And the other point here, this is kind of what we just talked about, high standing inventory could prompt builders to offer discounts or slow down activity in some other markets, Texas and Florida specifically. So I do agree with that as well. So, and you look at like the number of completed single family homes by region, most of them are in the South. And then they have like the West is number 2. Then you got the Midwest, and then there's like nothing in the Northeast, which is not surprising. So, and you know, the Northeast is basically north of Pennsylvania and Jersey. The Midwest starts at Ohio all the way out to the Dakotas. And then you've got the South, which is like Oklahoma, Tennessee, Maryland, West Virginia, and then you know where the West is. So that makes a lot of sense. I tend to agree with that. And then in terms of new single-family home inventory in October 2024, it's up 46.8% compared to pre-pandemic October 2019. But again, a lot of that's in the South and the West, not so much the Midwest, and definitely not the Northeast, which makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
So for those people, you know, that are maybe, you know, worried about forming a household so there was another article here, and I want to wrap with this and we'll take a break. Freddie Mac estimates there would be 1 million more U.S. households if the affordability strain caused by the housing shortage wasn't driving Gen Z and millennials to live longer with their parents. This was interesting to me. So, I mean, have you seen this with any like buyers where they're maybe like dating or they're engaged, but they're living at home and they're like holding off doing that? Have you run into that at all?
Not, I haven't noticed like a big increase in it.
Okay.
So I mean, I guess that could be happening, but I can't think of like a ton of examples off the top.
Yeah,
of my
I
head.
was just curious because I think that's a hard pill to swallow. Now, household formation might mean that it's like a boyfriend and girlfriend. I mean,
Mhm.
certainly that doesn't mean that they're always getting married. So in Freddie Mac's latest analysis, they estimated that the U.S. housing stock, which is currently at 147 million units, is 3.7 million units below the estimates that are needed in the housing market. So we're short 3.7 million homes. And 1 million is the number of households that haven't formed. I mean, I think there are people that are maybe holding off on doing things for sure. And especially if they're younger, you've got the ability to do that. And so, I mean, it just housing shortage is going to continue to be an issue. So, the root cause of decreased housing affordability is the fact that the housing supply hasn't increased enough to match demand. And that leads homeowners and renters to bid up the sale prices, which, we've seen happen all the
Mhm.
time. That puts a squeeze on affordability. So, I mean, it seems right. I think it's relevant data when you look at Philadelphia, just to get an idea. So we can give the local data here. Let me pull this up. Why can't I find it? Let's see here. It's not on this chart here at all. That's surprising. Oh, here we go. So they have the residents per missing housing unit. Philadelphia's at 86 residents per missing housing unit. And then they have the housing shortage in Philadelphia, and this is the metro area, is 72,000 homes. 1 year unit change in housing shortage, we're plus 7,795 properties. That's a 12% bump, which inventory is up about 12%. So that makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
And obviously the population in the Philadelphia metro area, it's 6.246 million, one of the larger in the country. So we're coming in a little better than the U.S., but not much. It's kind of what I'm seeing here in terms of the bump. The U.S. saw a 6% increase. We're seeing 12 here. So, it's this is kind of this is why I don't see prices going down in the marketplace. I mean,
Right.
it's very clear. I mean, what are your takeaways from this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is not going to be some drop in prices here. I mean, what we expect for appreciation over the next year, I think is going to be pretty normal.
Mhm.
I think that we'll probably be around that 4% mark here locally. So that will be, steady and standard, but there just are not there aren't enough homes for the people who would want to get into them. And every time that happens, you're not like, this isn't going to just like fall from the bottom.
I agree. A lot of stuff to talk about with inventory here. If you need help with it, you want to navigate it, you need some advice, you can schedule a call with our team with the link in the comments. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and talk about agent advice at the end of the year. Hopefully everyone's got their business plan done. We'll break that down next on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.
Mortgage service and great rates on your money, look no further than Mortgage America. We've been operating in the greater Philadelphia area for 40 years with a focus on smooth, easy access to home purchasing. Whether you're a first-time buyer, upsizing or downsizing, or just refinancing, we have programs for you. We also have closing cost assistance programs and access to
I think we just did
subsidized
2
interest
segments.
rates. Pre-approval is free, no
Let's
cost
wrap it
or
up.
commitments. To learn more,
And then
visit
what
our
were we going to
website
do
at
for the
mymortgageamerica.com
upcoming? Because I
or give
guess
us a call at
I think we should pre-record on Friday. Can you do that?
610-439-8000.
yes.
We always have
I'm
a
not doing
person
anything. I mean,
available to
it's
take
gonna be
your
fine.
call
I have like
around the
people in my
clock
house.
human service. Purchase
So
your
I
home
have
with
a
personalized local
I
service
have a showing at 12, and then I have
The Tom Toole Sales Group is
we're
the
getting
number
life
one
insurance,
RE/MAX team
so
in
that people are
Pennsylvania
coming
with
out
over
to like
165 million in volume
do
for
whatever at
2021.
like
doing a medical
I'm Tom
test.
Toole,
Yeah,
and our team
what's
has
that?
achieved
Medical
that
exam.
kind of success by being
So that's
a
at
great place to
1
work
at my
with
house.
and to work for.
So I could either
No
like
one
come
knows
out
real
after
estate
that,
better than
or
we
I
do.
could
You know,
do.
real
Let me see
estate,
if
but
next
more
thing-
importantly,
I didn't want to go
we're
in the office
real
on Monday,
people.
but
We hire the best agents
I
and
have
we
a
give
listing
them all the
appointment at
tools
1.
to succeed. Even our brand new agents sell 17 to 24 homes a year because our team delivers the best experience in real estate. Teams deliver a better experience than individuals, and we're a top 1% real estate team
What's
in the
Thursday look
country.
like for
We
you?
call it AAA service. We're your advocate, ally, and advisor because this isn't a transaction to us. It's a relationship. If you're buying or selling a home, call the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX main line at 610-692-6976.
I could do
or
Thursday
visit
morning.
tomtoole.com. That's tomtoole.com. Sell your home for more, and remember the real estate golden rule. You always get more when you work with Tom Toole.
When you're getting a mortgage, you shouldn't have to sacrifice great service just to get a great rate. At Mortgage America, we've been lending with this philosophy for over 35 years. We have access to great low rates without the complications and delays of big
I'm not going to do
online
Thursday
banks.
morning.
We're a local Pennsylvania
Let's figure
lender
out
with
the
loan
show.
officers that you can actually meet. 30 seconds. Number one lender. We
I could
specialize in all
do-
residential mortgage programs, including first-time buyer
I'm pretty open
programs and low down
tomorrow.
payment options. For your free pre-approval, call us at 610-439-8000 or apply
Tough to come
online
up
at
with stuff, though.
buyingmortgageamerica.com.
Have you considered a career in
We'll figure it
real
out.
estate? Do you want control over your income? Whether you have a license,
My neighbor's
call us
house tomorrow
today
or
at
something. Praying to God.
610-692-6976 or visit TomToole.com. Join our team, the Tom Toole.
Stupid Remax party. I'm like, I'm not going to that. All right. Welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Timon. We both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at Remax Mainline, the #1 Remax team in Pennsylvania and the greater Philadelphia area since 2018. And we are talking about some key metrics agents should know. And consumers, if you're listening, if you're thinking about making a move, you should be listening to this too, because there's some interesting data points that the Zillow chief economist Skylar Olson pointed out on the Knowledge Brokers podcast that I co-host every Friday on YouTube. Hopefully this will give you some value here. And if you have questions about what all this means, you can schedule a call with our team with the link in the comments. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. It would mean a lot to us. Hit the bell for notifications if you like what you hear. So Skylar Olson's, she's a pretty interesting person. She works at Zillow, and she's got a very lofty view of home ownership, but she also has some good data to talk through. So we had the chance to interview her a couple weeks ago, and what she said was there were 2 must-watch metrics to educate consumers. So you're reading the article. I'm not going to ask you to guess. I mean, you can just read the article. That would be ridiculous. So the two must-watch metrics for top producers, top performing agents were days to pending and new listings. What do you think about that information, Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, I think that days to pending is very important because once you get it under contract, there can be different timeframes that either the seller or the buyer need that could make days to close go like stretch way further and kind of like exaggerate those numbers. But it really is, it's the days to like getting under contract and then to getting through those contingencies to where you're pending that really measures like the likelihood of that transaction going through.
I agree, because when you think about it, I mean, there are extenuating circumstances. Settlement date's a negotiation point. Sometimes people want longer, they want shorter. That's all relative. Days depending shows the health of the market and the speed of the market. So to give you some perspective, the median time on market in the greater Philadelphia area is 12 days right now. So that tells me the market's moving fast, that you also have some time to make a decision, but not all the time. And it's going to set the tone for buyers who want to talk it over, for sellers in terms of how fast they need to be ready to make decisions. So it gives people a lot of information. It's also very actionable because if you see a home that's getting lots of showings, right, and the popular home's going to go under contract pretty quickly, you can use that to communicate urgency and seller competition. So she had a couple different scripts here. I thought this was pretty good. So tell me what you think of this script. This is a setting buyer expectations script. At the height of the shopping season, you're probably going to have 2 weeks from when you see a popular home that's well priced and when that thing will go pending. That's a fast move. So let's talk early about what you're looking for. Yep. You're having similar conversations using that kind of language?
Yes.
Do you change it at all? Is that pretty much verbatim? I mean, I would ask some questions here, but
no, I mean, it definitely, it can change depending on like who the client is and what the situation is. But I always stress like, let's figure out what is, what's important. What are we looking for? And that's something that can change as we go out and look at homes. Like that list and what you need can certainly can change as you're going through the process. But yeah, I absolutely let people know that once there's a home, like if it's coming up, it's coming soon, and I go in to book the showing, I don't necessarily know how many showings there are, but you can, if a lot of it is like blocked off, chances are those are all booked. Or if it's a hot home, but like it looks like the schedule is wide open, they're probably allowing multiple overlapping showings, at which point it could be tons of people that are in, you know? So, you know, if there's a hot home, if it's been marketed and has that coming soon time frame, you want to get out there like day one. And if
Mhm.
not day one, day two.
Well, and that also demonstrates the value of the planning meeting or the strategy session earlier, because the worst thing that can happen, and this happened to every agent. I don't care. Anyone says this hasn't happened to them, you're lying.
Mhm.
You get out, you show someone a home. Great, we love it. What do we do next, Sarah? And they have no idea what to do next because the agent, and I've done this, like this is not, this is not like some hypothetical. Well, we got to get our finances in order.
Mhm.
How much cash do you have? And like all these questions that you want to ask. If you're not doing that up front, then you're actually doing the buyer a disservice,
Right.
in my view. But if you explain it like that, it gives them the incentive to actually sit down with you, and then you can say, hey, there's 4 things I want to go over with you: the market and its pace, the lending process if they need a loan, their goals, and how the purchase process works in general. And then all of a sudden they understand all this. You've got an agenda, and it's going to help you just retain better buyer clients.
Mhm. And then it also leads to, when you do find the right home, obviously being able to have those pieces in place. But, you know, what all is in the agreement of sale, what does it mean,
Mhm.
isn't such a scary thing to go over.
Totally agree. And you're getting ahead of things. You're answering the questions that could freak people out up front
Mhm.
that may not even be a big deal.
Right.
So here's the second language to present this information. So we're in the slow part of the year right now. We're moving into December. The housing market slows down during the holidays. So this could either be an opportunity for the inventory that we do see, or maybe we can negotiate it down, because homes at this time of year do spend longer on the market, so we can have a little bit of time to get ready. What do you think about that language track, that talk track?
Yeah, I've encouraged my buyers that are out there that this is absolutely the time of year that you may be able to, you know, negotiate a little bit more on price or get those inspections. Maybe work in the time frame that you need. Typically, you're going to be up against fewer individuals, particularly now that we're even, you know, we talked last week. Now we're another week closer to Christmas. People that are putting their homes on the market right now tend to, it could be a couple of different things. Either they want to get ahead of the inventory that they're expecting to come up come January 1st. They maybe want to stick out a little bit more for when they're coming out, if other people are holding off, or they're motivated and they need to get their ducks in a row and would love to get this kind of off their plate. As far as like have the right buyer, go through negotiations, get it under contract before the end of the year.
Well said. And I think when you present things like that, you're delivering value. You're not just saying the same things that every agent says. Oh, it's a great time to buy. Like that's horrible language. This is actually factual data. And what Skylar's talking about here is leaning into the data. So regarding new listings, that was her second data point. That was the other critical metric she urges agents to monitor closely. And the flow of fresh inventory into the market, that can vary depending on location and time of year. We know we're a very seasonal market here in the Northeast, that impacts buyer and seller strategies. So, what she said some of the talking points are, and again, this is for buyers and for sellers, by the way. So in January and February, we're going to start seeing new listings really come back. That's going to be the time when we really want to start being ready. And then you want to set some local expectations. So there's some very low inventory markets, like Connecticut has the lowest inventory in the entire country. And then there's some other markets like places like Texas, San Antonio, Austin, that have exceeded pre-pandemic levels. And then you've got to give the local information. So we're going to take our market, the Northeast, right? So there may not be as much new inventory that we would like to see. It might be a little rough, but that's a good thing, because once we buy, we're sure that there's going to be some home price growth right afterwards, and it's going to be consistent. And that's more of an investment opportunity than some other parts of the country like Texas and Florida.
Right.
Is that something you're saying to people? What do you think about that piece of language that she's sharing there?
Yeah, no, I think that's very valid. When you're getting into a new home, again, moving's a hassle. The last thing that you want to think about is like, when I have to go turn around and do this again, or, if the plan is to be here long term. But it's good knowing, like going into it, knowing that it's an investment that's working for you, is very important for making people feel in order for people to feel secure about the large purchase that they're making.
I could not agree more. And there's plenty of data that proves this, right? I mean, you look at just what happens with carrying costs, or you can use some of those KCM slides. And the whole point here is data is going to give you a third-party validation. Like I got the question recently from someone I'm working with that they're getting conflicting information about when to list. So you ever hear the people that say, wait till after the Super Bowl, that cockamamie thing that agents come up with?
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of things to factor in. One, is the home going to be ready? That's like number one. If it's not ready, then don't rush it. But when you look at the data, you can actually pull from the MLS how many homes went pending January, every single month of the year, any year, versus how many homes were active on the market. And you can show them that data. And every trend is going to be different. But rather than just try to sell them on what strategy you recommended, hey, let's look at the data. Let's make a really good decision. It's going to make sense for everybody here. And that's exactly what Skylar's talking about. So I think that's really important. And the way to put it all together is, just understanding the metrics, understanding the market, and then asking them what they want to do next. I mean, that's really what ends up happening. And it's going to show you're on top of it. And that's what, buyers and sellers are going to really care about. So, those two data points are great. Any other end of the year like data points you're looking at right now, Sarah? Maybe Skylar didn't bring them up, but like some things you share with your clients regularly.
Well, I mean, I think this isn't like something different, but bringing it back to what she did here with showing sellers the data and how do we want to proceed is like, then they're involved in the decision making process as well. And that does something for people. I feel like when they're part of it, when they had a say in it, both for, feeling on board with the plan, but then also to some degree, like accountability down the line. Like, this is the route, like we looked at everything. This is the plan that we decided makes the most sense.
Well, instead of a you and an I conversation, it's a we conversation, which goes a long way. And when you're advocating for someone as an agent, saying things like, hey, we're on the same side here, I want what you want, and you're making decisions together, that goes a lot further than just telling people what to do or being overly aggressive or pushy. So, so that's great advice there with those two metrics. The other piece of advice for the end of the year, this was pretty interesting. Again, you've read all the prep work here. The biggest challenge for agents, there was a survey that was recently done, 82.7% said the number one challenge for realtors is consistency. Not knowing what to do each day, how to spend their time, how to stay consistent, and get consistent closings. Was that surprising to you, that answer, that 82.7%?
No, because I think it's one of those, like, we often talk about it being like a 90-day period. Like, what you do today you're going to see it in 90 days. So sometimes you will have little like hot upspurs of activity and things. And I always feel like it's easier to do more when you're busy. Like, I feel like you're already kind of like going. You've got, you can't put things off because you have no time to put it off. You're just kind of like going through it to a certain extent. If you're like way too busy, then you can't keep up with like the routine.
Yeah, that's overcommitted. Yeah, that's a little different.
But I think where it can get problematic for the consistency stuff is if you're in a little bit of a lull, you've done like the basic check things that you wanted to get done that day, and then kind of pushing yourself to do the next piece of work. Because I mean, a lot of it is like, you do it or you don't do it. Maybe you have an accountability partner, but like there isn't, there's not like an immediate, like at the end of the day, if you didn't do it, like you're fired.
Yeah. Well, you're firing yourself because you don't have any business to do. So effectively, I mean, real estate agents are unemployed every day when the day starts. Something you said there was really profound. That when you're busy, it's easier to get things done. Ben Franklin said, if you want to get something done, find a busy person to do it because they're going to be so much more efficient. It's like, I don't got time for this. Let me get it done. And done is better than perfect. I think that's and when you think about consistency, that's like if you ask any agent who's had any success, been in the business more than 5 years, consistency is always like their number one, or like discipline. Like it's the same thing. And there's so many agents out there. They know what they need to do. They just don't want to do it, and they can't be consistent with that, or they get distracted easily, or they focus on the wrong things. So the good news here is that you can be consistent pretty much on your own if you put your mind to it. So, what are some ways you've been able to become more consistent in your business than when you got started? Because this is also a growth pattern too. Like I was wildly inconsistent my first year. I didn't know what to do when I got started. Now it's a lot different 24 years later. But but you've got a much more recent perspective. What have you done to be more consistent in your business?
I mean, I think kind of realizing what works for me, you know what I mean?
Smart.
And what brings about results, not necessarily that they're all immediate results, but like what activities are worthwhile going in and spending the time to do. I feel like not going on wild goose chases
Yeah.
or like just like, oh, maybe this will work. Maybe this will work. So, seeing who is active on the site, who's
Mhm.
who's regularly, even if you're not talking to them on a regular basis, like if people are regularly searching or making inquiries about different properties, like that's somebody that's good to keep tabs on. So yeah, I guess just like recognizing what works and where best to spend your time.
I think that's really important because what's going to work for you may not work for me or work for other people. You've got to play to your strengths for sure, and then just do more of that, right? It's running plays that work. We say that all the time in our team, and that's really really critical. Do you feel like you've developed more of like a daily routine and schedule now versus even 2-3 years ago?
Yes. Now I feel like it shifted a little bit. I feel like actually when I very first started, I think was pretty good about like,
But you also didn't have a kid then.
right,
I mean,
about
there's
like
a lot
doing
of
things a
things.
certain way. Then kid kind of like makes the
Yeah,
schedule go a little haywire. But yes, I feel like I've kind of found a balance. There's always room for improvement. There's
of
always
course.
ways that things could be tightened up or made more efficient. But I think I know if there's certain things that I do them every day, at the end of the day, I can like feel okay about the day.
That's a really great point. And, we talk about having kids. I feel like having kids forced me to have a better schedule because there was less margin of error to like,
Mhm.
oh, if I don't get this done now, like, once the kid comes home,
It's all over.
it's over. Yeah,
It's all
it's
over.
over. So, and so I think that's something that's pretty important. What about prioritization? That's something that, a lot of people don't like. They get stuck doing all the stuff that's like the nonsense. Like, oh, I'm going to call this agent back and negotiate this home inspection. And that problem is like there all the time.
Mhm.
I mean, we got off a call with some clients. Like we knew we had to make the call. We knew it was going to be a long call, and we
Mhm.
took it at a time where it made sense for our schedule, so we didn't sacrifice something else.
Mhm.
How have you learned to prioritize? Because there's a method to this here. I'm just curious how you went about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think for different situations, it can be different. Like it sounds kind of dumb, but like there is
It
uh
doesn't explain.
the eat the frog, right?
Yep,
Like get
love
in,
that.
just get it done. But in some cases, not jumping on something too quickly almost alleviates some of the issues, like being
Hmm.
too uh like overly zealous to like tackle something sometimes or to like find an answer, like sometimes makes it worse. So I guess realizing like what time does a decision need to be made by,
Hmm.
how much time do the clients or the other side like need um to be able to then like review things and get back to you. So just kind of like looking at the timeline, knowing the client, and then prioritizing when to do it. And I guess also for some of the things that you don't know if it's going to take a little bit of time or like a larger chunk of time, making sure you do it in a window that you can do it and that you're not cutting anything short.
I think that's really smart, and letting things play out is a strategy that works. I mean,
Yeah.
emotions run high in this business, and
Mhm.
letting things breathe for a little bit. Usually, if you're going to get a no, it's usually a quick no.
Mhm.
Sometimes people need to like calm down and realize like what's the best decision here because
Right.
they're annoyed at whatever's going on. I'm a big believer in the ABCDE method from Brian Tracy. So it's where you label everything you got to get done in your day, right? So A is like the most important thing. That they're the frogs, right? Exactly what you talked about, where you have to do it. Like it's the most important thing. There's major consequences if you skip the A, right? Like
Mhm.
so my family's going to starve, right? Like I'm not going to be able to pay my bills this month. Like
Mhm.
those are major consequences. Then there's B, which has minor consequences. These are like tadpoles, right? So someone might get unhappy, they might be inconvenienced, but it's not nearly as important as an A task. C have no consequences. It's nice to get done, but there's no consequences at all. That could be like having coffee or lunch with like someone from work, or doing some personal business during work hours. Like you're going to get them done at some point, but maybe not. There's not a major consequence there. D's to delegate, so get rid of it. And E is eliminated altogether. And if you can label those things, and you're like, all right, I really got like 2 or 3 A's, and this is how you come up with a business plan. Like, what are the most important things? It's a different way to look at this here, which I think is going to be pretty helpful for a lot of people.
Mhm.
Understanding it that way, in terms of like, what am I actually spending my time on? What's going to be the best way to go about this here? So, have you ever gone through your schedule and like actually or your day and like labeled them like most to least important? Do you prioritize things like that?
Not with like a through like that method, but I do have, like I'll highlight certain things or star
So
certain
you're
things,
doing
or
it.
like
You're doing it without
I'm
labeling
doing
them.
it. Yeah, I do it in my own way. But yeah, I know what is most important to get done and what's going to be like a problem if it's not handled.
Yeah, that's great. It was an interesting thing in this article. Tessa Gelton wrote this. I know her from stuff over at BAM. She talked about fixing the weak areas in your business, because a lot of people like to focus on what they're good at.
Mhm.
So I know I've had to do this a lot, because there's like certain things I'm like, yeah, I'll do this. I'm awesome at it. But then there's other things I'm really weak at, and they tend to be the bottlenecks. Have you ever had to go through that, Sarah? Or like, what in terms of like, I need to get better at this, like it's really causing problems? I know I have. So
Yeah.
it's hard to like have that conversation with yourself too, because you don't want to admit weakness.
Well, and it's usually, I don't know that I've said, like, I'm not really afraid to admit like weakness in certain
Well, neither
areas,
am I, but it's still.
but then there are things that you also typically don't like or enjoy doing because
For
they're
sure.
not like they're not coming naturally to you, or it's something that takes a different skill set, or
Mhm.
whatnot. So then getting the motivation to actually get in and do it. I know like a lot of my struggles come from like implementing different technologies.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
Where like, it'll be like, oh, all right, so do this. But I'm like, but I don't even know how to get to the page to click on that. Like, where do
Mhm.
I even go to do that, to do this? Like, there's all of these little hurdles that like making myself continue to push through them is challenging.
Well, and so we've worked on these things together, and it's also what I see. I see something a little differently, where you feel bad asking people for help, and
Right.
I think it's like you're like, oh, I think that's actually the issue. This is like a therapy session all of a sudden, but like when someone sits down and shows you, it's like, all right, now I
Yeah.
know how to do this, and it's not that
Mhm.
big of a deal. And I get that, because it's sometimes you feel like, oh, I should know this, or
Mhm.
I mean, I get that as well. One of the things for me that's been really difficult is, this might surprise you, was like staying organized, because I'm like so focused on like the stuff that like I know I need to get done.
Mhm.
I tend to avoid the other stuff that like creates structure. And
Yeah.
but it's like if you were to go in my home office right now, you would see what I'm talking about. So stay consistent, everybody. That's all we got this week. You want to follow Sarah? She's at Ty_Ty Time. You can follow me at TomToole3RD, both on Instagram. And to wrap this up here, here's what you are going to get if you stay consistent. You're going to have consistent closing, regular referrals, and confidence in what you're doing, instead of being on the commission roller coaster, being confused and overwhelmed, and wondering if real estate's for you. Great advice there. If you want to follow us, you can follow us on Instagram. You can subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. And if you want to schedule a call with our team, you can do that with the link in the comments. We will see you next week on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. Let's do this thing for Camilo.